Hey, bequest, 2 cents. That's approximately how much the US paid per acre during the Alaska Purchase from Russia in 1867, acquiring approximately 375 million acres for just $7.2 million. This is one of the most insane transactions in history. How could something so valuable be exchanged for so little? I mean, the US struck absolute gold, and Russia also did in the 1830s. Russia had discovered scattered gold deposits in Alaska, but instead of celebrating, they panicked. They feared a California-style gold rush which would flood Alaska with uncontrollable Americans, causing Russia to lose control of the territory without earning a dime. Combine this with their crushing debt after losing the Crimean War, fear of the British encroaching from nearby British Columbia, and the general disinterest in exploring Alaska's harsh terrain, Russia decided Alaska wasn't worth fighting for and sold. Since then, Alaska has generated billions of dollars for the US and has provided an almost priceless geopolitical location for the US military. Almost priceless, after all. The only truly priceless thing is time. $17. That's the inflation-adjusted median hourly wage for the past 40 years in the United States. A chicken bowl combo at Chipotle is what 1 hour of human life is worth. Work a 40-hour work week, and that's about $35,000 a year. Before taxes, that's barely enough to scrape by in most of the country. Just like Russian bears in Alaska didn't choose to become US citizens, we didn't choose to be born into a system that strips us of our time. Consider this. For 5 days a week, the average full-time worker's life looks as follows. Wake up at 7 a.m. and half an hour of getting ready, half an hour commute, 8.5 hours at work, including an unpaid half an hour lunch, and half an hour commute home. Totaling 10 hours each day related to work. And at 5 days a week, this is actually 50 hours. But hey, if you're on bed by 11 p.m. to get 8 hours of sleep, you'll still get 6 hours each day just to enjoy yourself, right? Wrong. Factor in essential life activities, 2 hours of chores, half an hour for dinner, half an hour for showering, and half an hour of getting ready for bed. You're left from 8 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. as free time. That's 2.5 hours a day for yourself, 2.5 hours for your friends, family, exercise, hobbies for 5 out of 7 days each week for 43 years. Assuming you start working at 22 and retire at 65, for 43 years, you'll keep counting down the minutes until you get to go home. For 43 years, you'll keep counting down the days until the weekend. And if you're lucky enough to live to the average life expectancy of 76 years, you'll get 11 years to do whatever you want, except by then you may be growing weak, old, sick, and watching many of the loved ones you want to spend time with begin to pass away. If this all sounds depressing, it's because it is. So why do we accept this? Why do we work 40 hours? The Milgram experiment. How obedient are we when faced with authority, even if it means harming others? This is the chillingly simple question Stanley Milgram asked in 1961. The experiment involved a scientist instructing participants to administer what they believed were electric shocks to another individual who was an actor whenever they gave an incorrect answer. These shocks increased in intensity with every mistake, and the participant would hear the actor increasingly scream in agony, begging the participant to stop until they eventually fell ominously silent. Whenever participants hesitated, the scientist in charge would insist they continue and, if necessary, would exclaim, "You have no other choice. You must go on." 65%. Approximately 2/3 of all participants followed orders all the way to the deadly max voltage, even when they thought they might be killing someone. Replications of this experiment have shown consistent results worldwide. One study even found that 90% of all participants were willing to go to the max voltage. Milgram's experiment showed the shockingly frightening power of authority and perhaps complacency, its ability to override personal conscience, compelling us to accept and do the things we know are wrong. If the majority of us are willing to take the life of another human being just because someone in a lab coat tells us to, is it any surprise we give our life away at the command of society as a whole? Though it's important to keep in mind that the 40-hour workweek was actually a victory for society. It took over 100 years of protests, riots, and even deaths to achieve this. Like the tragic Haymarket Affair of 1886, where workers literally fought and died for the right to an 8-hour day. 8 hours of labor, 8 hours of recreation, 8 hours of rest was more than just a catchy slogan for workers. It was a matter of life and death. Before the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1940 established the 40-hour workweek, kids were working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Their work week did not end. In fact, there was no weekend. The word weekend wasn't commonly known until the mid-1900s. People knew what Coca-Cola was, what a telephone was, but didn't know what the weekend was. It was an entirely different world when the 40-hour workweek was established. There was no TV, no internet, no frisbees, no instant coffee, heck, not even pre-sliced loaves of bread. 888 is outdated. In the past 40 years alone, inflation has shot up 250%, with productivity outpacing wages by nearly 300%. And wages have only increased 16%. We're producing more and generating more wealth for the wealthy than ever before, but yet we're more broke now than we have ever been. 80 years ago in the 1940s, economists generally thought and predicted we'd be working 15 hours by the year 2030 due to the increased productivity. And they were right about the productivity, but underestimated greed. Frogs are the symbol for greed in many cultures. This idea stems from the frog's uncontrollable appetite, willing to consume anything without thinking of the long-term consequences. Frogs even slam their eyes into their mouth just to swallow faster, and some, like the cane toad, even swallow their tongue to eat. But even more insane is the pistol shrimp, which snaps its tiny claws so fast it creates a shock wave that briefly reaches temperatures close to the surface of the sun. A small action can be powerful, so let's not swallow our tongues when it comes to speaking up against the 40-hour workweek. Our collective noise might just cause shockwaves that pave the way for change. Though legislation for a 32-hour workweek without pay cuts has been proposed at both federal and state levels, none have passed due to insufficient pressure. See, change is in our hands. There is a choice, and we do not have to go on with the status quo. Will we choose complacency or action during our time on this earth? Earth is very big, but our time to live is very small. So now is always the time to reflect on who and what is truly valuable to you. See, our time may not be priceless, but the people we decide to spend it with are. So we can't make the mistake of trading something so valuable for so little. At the very least for now, call your family, reach out to a friend, forgive someone. Time doesn't wait, and neither should you. So choose wisely and don't waste your time. But at the end of the day, this is just my 2 cents. Thanks for watching.